India has once again refused to endorse China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, becoming the only country in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to not support the project. India has always opposed the BRI, as it says the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor violates India's territorial integrity and sovereignty. So what is the China Belt and Road Initiative? In 2013, China launched its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. The initiative included the construction of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which was in the headlines for obvious reasons as it threatened India's security. So why is this Belt and Road Initiative so important for China? Let's try to understand this. Alright, so first of all, one must know that the country is considered to be a strong one if it has good relations with other countries and has more army or naval bases in other countries. Now here the US has strong ties with many countries and has more than 800 military bases throughout the world, while China has just one, and that too in Djibouti. But again, Djibouti base is not a complete military base. It is just to support the incoming and outgoing troops. Now because of this, in a warlike situation, US and India alone can break China. The reason behind this is that most of China's fuel imports come from the Middle East and flow through the Indian Ocean. And if you see, China has no ports in the Indian Ocean or anywhere near it. And Shanghai, Hong Kong and other ports of China are towards the China Sea, which is on the other side of the world. So, the closest way to take fuel from Middle East to China is through this tiny passage that is called the Strait of Malacca, which falls within the territory of Indonesia, Malaysia and Singapore. Now, according to a report from Warsaw Institute, more than 70% of China's petroleum and LNG imports flow through this passage. On top of this, 60% of China's trade flow through this passage to the China Sea. So in a warlike situation, US and India can use this alliance with Singapore to choke the Strait of Malacca. And if done so, then China will have no other option but to take its oil and business through a very long way, which will cost them almost around $200 billion every year. And even in those routes, there are US allies that will make it difficult for China to get their shipments. This is why 2013's Chinese President Xi Jinping's announcement of the Belt and Road Initiative, by which China can develop an alternative trade route which can lead to China's dominance over India and US. BRI promised various infrastructural projects like building ports, railways, roadways, bridges, dams and other power stations in poor developing countries, especially in Asia and Africa. Now, how does China initiate its plans? First of all, China takes a look at economically weak countries, and if you see the map, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar and Djibouti are located at the best positions on China's trade route. So firstly, China gives a huge amount of loan to these countries. Now, where the World Bank or the IMF gives loan at 1 to 2% interest, China charges a far higher interest rate, which is sometimes as high as 6%. Secondly, where World Bank or IMF gives loan for a payback period of around 20 to 30 years, China gives loan for only 10 to 15 years. Plus, supposedly if the loan is given to build a port, then China wants the contract of building the port given to a Chinese company. Then this company will bring Chinese workers from China to build the port. Now the catch here is that because these Chinese companies have a monopoly in building port projects, they can charge a far higher amount than that what costs. Now you must be thinking as to why a country takes loan from China or other such countries, then asking for loans from World Bank or IMF. Well, the answer lies in the financial goodwill and international organizations coming into play. When a country takes a loan from World Bank or IMF, there are multiple financial institutions and the United Nations itself that enters into a loan deal. Here, if in any case the country is not able to pay back the said loan, then the financial goodwill of the country is tarnished in the eyes of all the big institutions throughout the world. Because of this, it becomes difficult for a country to get further loans when needed. Here comes countries like China. Loans taken from these countries don't have any global financial institutions at play. In fact, there are private parties who witness the deal or are a part of the deal. So even if the rates of loan from them are high, the financial goodwill of the country is not at stake. Now, why Djibouti? Djibouti is a country which is strategically located at the junction point of Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea. Also, it is the starting point of the Horn of Africa. So Djibouti controls the trade traffic flowing from the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden and the Indian Ocean. Also, China controls the port in Myanmar. But again, the question here is, why is China so adamant to control these ports while they are still far away from China? The answer here is second part of the Belt and Road Initiative. That is the economic corridor, according to which China will build pipelines, highways and train routes from these ports that will connect mainland China. Now in Myanmar, you see there is a 793 kilometer pipeline built from Kepyu city all the way to the Yunnan region in China. There is also a highway built from Yangon port to the southwest Yunnan province of China. Talking about Pakistan. First, they have the Gwadar port, which China has taken on a 40 years lease. The Pak government last year also announced 3,721 km of a crude oil pipeline that goes from Gwadar port to Xinjiang in China. Also, Pakistan agreed to the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC) that goes through POK and Balochistan. China also has its national highway, that is the National Highway G219, built all the way through the Nepal border, going all the way to the Aksai Chin and even through it, which again is active, and mobilization takes place through that. China also is building a rail route from China to London, going all the way from China, Kazakhstan and Russia, and connecting the UK with Germany. Then there is a railway from China to Iran that is going through Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan and finally ends in Iran. Now all these routes have supporting infrastructure like power plants, high-speed internet connectivity, oil refineries and much more. Now if you look at all these roads, rail and sea routes, China is actually creating a network of routes which could reduce China's dependency on the Strait of Malacca. But there is another catch. While most of the media organizations consider this step of China as a strategic defense move, many defense strategists believe that these ports or routes can be used mostly for surveillance and not for attack purposes. Because first of all, China needs an even bigger navy and a lot more resources to make these ports attack capable. Secondly, these roads and ports lie in economically weaker nations that have weaker democracies and governments. So regular protests, civil war situation and changes of government is a continuous process which hinders the defense-based plan. And thirdly, these nations like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Djibouti and Myanmar don't have the resources to spare for China to build naval or attack capable bases.